My first job in coffee, I walked into this cafe. This was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and it was the only cafe tucked away in this alley and truly a mom-and-pop operation. It was run by a couple, Jim and Ann Clark, and I had started from a very early age drinking bad Italian restaurant espresso, and Jim Clark himself filled me a shot of his espresso, and it was completely unlike anything I had ever tasted. I just decided that I needed to get a job there because I needed to be around that, and 4 months later I was managing the place. At the ripe age of 16, I had all the espresso I could drink, and I drank a lot of espresso. Food is a big deal. My grandparents would have family dinner. They had this big, long oak table, and it would seat at least a few dozen, and every Sunday there would be at least a few dozen people there. My grandmother's an Italian-American, and she can cook, and we would sit at the table for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, and everyone would scream, debating politics and current events. We would eat some really, really good soul food. That was always a big deal, and the sights, the scents, and the tastes, those are the flavors of my youth. It was not something that I got out of necessarily. I had always been working in food one way or another, and working in a kitchen would get me to waiting tables, and waiting tables would get me to working in a kitchen again, and that would get me to being a barista, and that would coffee roasting, bartending, and so on and so forth. No, it wasn't something that I planned out. I started bartending at the Bourbon Theater in April of 2009. I had been told that they were opening a new spot, and were looking for someone who was knowledgeable and could wax poetic about a wide selection of bourbons. So much of my job, particularly when working with customers, was being able to eloquently explain what I was tasting and perhaps what they could taste from a coffee. And in a way, I was only attracted to it to make myself a better roaster, and I wasn't even thinking about becoming a bartender or something. I had been 21 for all of 3.5, 4 months at that time. I went out and spent all my money on bourbon, and spent a month drinking a lot of bourbon, and reading a lot about bourbon, and by the end of it, I was waxing pretty poetic. If you come in and say, what drink do you want to make? And it's not about just making them something. This isn't some sort of creative art. This isn't painting. You're not going to be stepping on my toes creatively. You are going to be the sole consumer of this beverage. It's not a public work. You need to enjoy it. So I want to make what you enjoy, and that can be whatever you enjoy.